today we'll be talking about understanding lupus and the lived experiences with lupus, and with my story as a lupus patient, a survivor, and just taking every day as it comes with lupus. Is it good? Yeah.
That I wrote.
It's not okay. Don't try this.
Technology. Just trying to see what the problem is. There we go. Well, that shouldn't be the case. There we go. Yeah, so it's working now.
So what to expect in this session? So we're going to talk about the landscape of lupus, the symptoms, the findings, treatments. Then I'll go down to my own lived experience, so my own process with living with lupus, what my research is on, how it started, and something called PAAG CHIME. So CHIME is a mental health well-being framework already. So I adapted my own story to that CHIME framework, and finding evidence through my own study on other people's lived experience to see if what I found in my story is evident in other people's stories. Then theories that can explain how lupus participants are either flourishing or languishing, how to build support and cope, and how we can engage to get more support and more understanding of lupus. So understanding the lupus landscape. So lupus in general is when our immune system are unable to identify the good cells and the bad cells. So it attacks anything they see. So it attacks your tissues, your organs, and leads to various debilitating issues that you find in your life. So the fatigue that you feel, the inability, maybe if it's digestion, to walk, your joints. So our body is unable to identify that these are okay cells. So rather than fighting diseases when you have an infection, your body fights it. It doesn't fight, it just fights your own organs. So various parts of your body can be affected. So our skin, our joints, our kidneys, the heart, nervous system, the nerves. So it's not curable for now. So we have to manage that condition. So what are the findings? It affects more women of childbearing age between 15 and 14, but there are people that have had it even younger than 15. And it affects more women than men. So if we have 10 people that have lupus, we can find one man that has it. And also it can be severe with them. So it's also found that people from ethnic minority groups can have various severe effects than people from other backgrounds. And the manifestations of lupus, it has high mortality rates. And it's also because of the fact that it mimics so many illnesses. So it can be misdiagnosed. Sometimes you go in and the doctor might say, oh, it's nothing, or it's this, it's that. So that can make it worse for people. That's why it is dangerous. So what are the kinds of treatments normally with lupus is anti-inflammatory drugs, ibuprofen, but sometimes if you have kidney involvements, they might not give you ibuprofen. And I'll come to that when I'm talking about my own story. Then the anti-malarial drugs are like hydroxychloroquine, which are meant to help with fatigue, your skin and your joints. The steroids, which should help with inflammation. Then immunosuppressants, to reduce the immune system activity. Then biological treatments. So the biological treatments are meant to have lesser effects than the chemotherapy that you get. So they use biological treatments instead. Then other medications like blood pressure medications to help water retention, anticoagulants, and all that. These are that's why in the treatment of lupus, it needs, I'll call it a gang of doctors. So it's not just one specialty, it's not just rheumatology. You would have rheumatology, you will have nephrology, you will have cardiology. It's a big scope that needs a team to work it out. So now I will tell you a story of my life. So I've gone through what the symptoms are and all that. So this is my own lived experience. So in 2011, I was about to travel and I was having joint pains. Oh, but way before that, as a child, I've always been very sickly. Yeah, my mom is here to attest to that. I've always been very sickly. If it's not my stomach, it's my head, it's a seizure, it's my joints, I can't walk. But I lived in Nigeria, so there's limited medical resources for me. Misdiagnosis, doctors didn't know what I had. I was practically a lab rat because when they come in, they just have student doctors all around me. And I've had a doctor say sometimes he didn't know what to do, and he said, EJ, tell us what is wrong with you. You know, so it's that complicated. They did not know what was wrong with me. Fast forward to coming to England. I know I always had clicking joints. My fingers, when it's cold, my fingers swell up. I was having very dry throat that I felt I was choking. So I always tried to drink water to just keep it wet so that I could swallow. So, but because I was traveling, my mom made me go into hospital and to get tested. So I remember going to see the GP, and I said, you know what, my bones are always clicking and I feel there's something wrong with my joints. So I explained what was happening to me. My chest was hurting. I would wake up normal. Then by the time at the end of the day, I'll be limping. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And you have enormous pain in my body. So he sent me for this test. But because I was also traveling, I was in a hurry. I wasn't really bothered. I was like, oh, I need to move. But on my way to the airport, I got a call. And the receptionist said, the doctor said, you need to come into hospital now. I didn't have a clue what she was talking about. And I just said, but I'm in the Piccadilly line going to Heathrow Airport. I can't just, you know. And the line got, and I moved on. But I had a wake-up call. When I got to Nigeria, I spent a few months, then I got pregnant. And it dawned on me that that call, I need to come back. So coming back, I couldn't do anything because I was pregnant, but my pregnancy was kind of painful, my joints were swelling, but nothing could be done. Miraculously, 38 weeks, and our doctor said, did you have a miscarriage? And I said, no. I had my baby and everything went downhill. And that was in 2012. I remember I went in to see the rheumatologist then, after I'd had my baby, and she said to me, you have lupus. I had no clue what she was talking about. So it's like, she tried to explain arthritis, kind of family, it affects your joints. I was like, yeah, my joints are painful. He said, but it feels like it's also affected your kidneys, but we need to test to find out if it's affected your kidneys. So I said, okay, so she gave me hydroxychloroquine. Then I was still breastfeeding. My baby was less than 3 months. So I said, okay, we'll give you. Then I started having serious acidic reflux that I just couldn't sit. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't. Then I was praying one day with my mom, and half of my face dropped, and it was shaking. My mom was panicking. What's happening? A few days later, I was so sick. I went to the GP. The GP said, you need to go into hospital. I thought I was reacting to the hydroxychloroquine the doctor gave me. So I went in. I was swollen. My whole body was swollen. But I got in. They said, oh, you need a biopsy. And the truth is, some doctors, especially when you go into A&E, because they're not specialists, they really do not know what is wrong with you. They have no clue, and it's no fault of theirs. But the doctor came in and said, I need the biopsy to check. And I noticed that when I pee, it's full of foam. It's quite foamy. I did not understand what was that. But everything just went bad. Everything. I woke up one morning in the hospital and I had a seizure. What I could remember was I was being woken up, yeah, and they were calling me EJ, you know, and I woke up. The only thing I could say is, where's my mommy? Mind you, as a 27-year-old woman, and the only thing I can say is, where is my mom? Why? Because that's the only face I've always seen when I'm in crisis, and she wasn't there. But that medical, so I had a barrage of medicines to help me. So I've put down my treatments. I started with mycophenolate chemotherapy drugs, but my kidneys were shutting down because I was so swollen. I couldn't wear shoes. I was wearing Crocs because my feet couldn't fit into shoes. So with that, they had to put me on chemotherapy. So I had to do cyclophosphamide for 6 months. And then that started the trajectory of trying so many medications. So the chemotherapy helped with my kidneys to stop it from leaking protein and damaging any further. But then I started developing Raynaud's. My fingers started breaking, it was sore, it would get infected. My joints started having issues. I developed a vascular necrosis because I was using steroids, high doses of steroid, and I used it for a long time. But to help with my lupus, I was then put on the biological treatment because the biological treatment has a lesser impact than the chemotherapy, the cyclophosphamide and that. Another thing, it was quite important that I also had good communication with my doctors, because that made it that anything that was happening, I could have that conversation. They had to call my mom and my uncle then to sit them down. One thing with lupus is stress. When we're stressed, we get flare-ups really bad. And one of the stresses people is your family, kids, finance, romance. I can remember the doctor saying, EJ, you know, you should switch off your mind from finance and romance because that's the source of stress. So for you to get better. So I've been on lots of treatments. So I've had iloprost, now I'm on Flolan. The biological medicine, so I have treatments every month. So every month I go into hospital, I have an infusion, and that has worked for more than 3 years now. But before then, it was just trial and error going. The hospital is like my second home. I'm on blood pressure medications, I'm on neuropathic medications because I have nerve damage, then gastro-resistant vitamin D. So it's a whole lot of package. So that has been my story medically since 2012. How has it impacted me? So first of all, it impacted my kidneys. Then I developed Raynaud's, so my fingertips are damaged, so the nerves in my fingertips are damaged. Then photosensitivity, when I'm in the sun, it burns my skin, it makes me sick, it makes me exhausted. My joints, I have a walking stick in my car. I have a stair lift in my house because there's sometimes my knee lock and I can't move. So I have crutches at home. I'm overly fatigued. I'm always very tired. I was having a chat with my friend yesterday and we were both looking at ourselves like, can you go? I'm tired. And you know, and it's an exhaustion you cannot really explain. You can wake up in the morning and you're exhausted. So you can wake up maybe feeling like you have, if you imagine Duracell battery when they're in full battery, you can wake up like that and in the next couple of minutes you're run down. So it is that fatigue that is unexplainable and people would not understand. Because if you look at me, I look normal, I look healthy, and no one will know what my daily task is or how fatigued I am, how I cannot remember stuff. I can go to the shop and I will not remember anything. I can be writing, I can't string a sentence. Tell my friends I'm not sure this PhD, how I will finish it. We'll finish it somehow. You know, my mom would say, if EJ gives you an appointment, check it again. because I might either appear before the appointment or appear 2 weeks after the appointment. So, and I laugh about it now because I just have to laugh about it. But that's my process of making light of it. As much as I think one thing my friends and family know is that I just, my mom would say, well, if I have the energy, yes. If I don't, what else can I do? So it's a long-term, it's a lifelong treatment regimen. I never liked medications, and no one will tell me that I'll be having medication the rest of my life. The highest coming from my Nigerian background is have a course of anti-malaria drugs when you have malaria or you have typhoid. 1 week you go to the hospital, but to stick and have medication every day and not knowing when it will end. The thought of it is quite exhausting, but it is life. It keeps me going, so I can't complain about it. Effects on social life. I get tired even before someone says, oh, we're going here. I get tired in advance. So people might think, oh, you don't want to come. It's not that you don't want to come, it's just that you're tired and you can't help it. No energy drinks can move me forward. So it isolated me. Lupus isolated me. I cut off friends because I couldn't explain what was wrong with me. I've had someone, I said I had lupus, and the person said, is it contagious? Or you look normal. Why are you not working? So when I had my son in 2012, I didn't work again till 2018. And even me working in 2018 was that voluntary work, a couple of hours a week, and just build it at that. So when you're someone at a certain age, your peers are moving in their career, I'm doing this and doing that, you know, and so I had to go off social media because it was just, don't see everyone feels like they're progressing and you're just still, what are you doing? I'm at the hospital. Oh, what are you doing? I'm unable to do this. And even when you hear conversations like your parents say, oh, someone would say to my mom, oh, what's CJ doing now? You know, everyone has progress stories of their kids, and oh, she's unwell. It just drops, like your hope drops and all that. So that was an effect of lupus in my life. Unemployment, oh yes, I couldn't hold up unemployment because I needed to get up in the morning and feel like I'm a human being before getting employment anyway. I wouldn't hire myself. And it's invincible because people see you and you look so good, but they do not know what you're going through. I've packed up in a disabled bay, and someone actually came in and said, this is a disabled bay. And I was like, yes, I know, I have a badge. You know, so when you look normal, so now I think it's also made me look at things from a different perspective and see people differently. And it's just typical, you cannot read people just by looking at them. There's so much more beneath what we see. I've become totally dependent on my mom. So on my very bad days, I can't get out of bed. So she will practically do everything for me, everything, and also take care of my son. There was a time my mom had to stop work, entirely, stop work, because my son was just 3 years old. Even before then, she would take permissions when he was a baby, you know, and at the point, she just had to, she had no annual leave, she had no life. Everything was for me to, she wakes up in the morning, gets my son dressed, gets me a smoothie, puts it beside me, takes my son to school, comes back and cooks, cleans and everything. So I was so, because I was totally immobile, I couldn't do anything. I was either having surgery on both knees and both ankles, I was either having skin infections or cell infections, whatever it was. So I was totally dependent on her. And that on its own is, it's killing, because so many people at my age were the ones taking care of my mom, taking care of their parents. In my African culture, when you get to a certain age, you're working, you should be taking care of your parents and doing that. There's that shift of responsibility. But it felt like I didn't shift. I couldn't shift that responsibility. I had to say stop and be dependent on her. And I'll talk about side effects of the medication. So, like chemotherapy, they'll tell you that it might affect your, as a woman, affect your ability to have a child again. Is it the steroids? It has the weight gain, the joint issues. So whatever it treats, sometimes it has so many other things that it affects. So it's a double whammy. So it treats one and it affects the other one. If it's hydroxychloroquine, I have to get my eyes checked again and again because it affects the retina. I've had a retina tear, and fortunately I was in hospital having an infusion when I had the tear, and I went into the eye hospital and they had to have a retinoplasty done immediately. So it is that effect that we have to live with and just be in the moment. So it affects all aspects of your life. Even sometimes, even the people you live with, when you're active and all that, they might even forget that there's something wrong with you. And even my mom would just come and she's exhausted, I'm exhausted. Oh, you've not done this, and I'm just lumped down in the chair and I know at that moment no trop can drag me off that spot. So it's those factors, and there are other factors that affected my situation at that point. So at that stage, I had no life ambition. The only thing I needed was to be alive. I'm a therapist now, and I can remember talking to a client, and you say to a client, so how are you living? Are you further? He said, no, I'm just coping. I'm just alive. I'm just in that. So I was in that state. My life revolved around hospitals, my house, and the church. I had a psychology degree then, but I couldn't do anything with it. I had limited capacity to do anything. At that point also, because I came with a student visa, but I couldn't work after my 2 years course, so my mom had to do an application for me. And that application was rejected. And that fear of immigration also exacerbated the stress I had. So if my symptoms were even worse because of that fear that was in me. So my mom had to go, we had to go to the tribunal to prove my case that I would not have the medical facilities that I needed back home, and I can afford it. The basic thing is that even if it's there, I cannot afford it because it's not like something I need to take for 6 months. It's something I'll have to take for the rest of my life, So I can remember the judge saying to my mom, so what if we send her back to Nigeria? What would you do? My mom said, you're just basically sending her back to die. That's what you're trying to do because I can't afford to take care of her financially. However, as God will have it, we got that approved and we're staying now and everything is sorted. But that was a stressor. Having to, at the point there was a time I had to even report at the detention center every 2 weeks. That on its own, and then have an appointment in the hospital, go report, then go to the appointment, all that. So the stresses that come with life exacerbates your symptoms. So it's not just the lupus that you're contending with, it's all the other baggages that come around it. So how did I find meaning? So it's not just the downers that the story is about. It's also finding purpose. When we're in the dumps, we're in the dumps. So it can be challenging, but it's possible to find meaning and purpose despite the challenges. Embracing our strengths, connecting with others, and discovering new passion. So it changes your path. Sometimes we come into life and we feel we have this set path. Oh, I know where I'm going. But sometimes when life happens, it redirects our path. Mine, I would say, is the role of faith And we have different faiths, we have different beliefs, we have different sparks in us. Mine was faith. Although I felt down in the dumps, somehow I grew in faith because it gave me hope. It made me feel like, although it's dark, although there's no light, but somehow there is someone somewhere that is still breathing life in me. You know, I grew up as a Catholic, and we have this. The Catholic teaching talks about cross, so making it that my pain wasn't meaningless after all. So I needed to accept it and move on, wherever life may take me. So, and when I talk about paths shifting, I couldn't have a job. I couldn't apply for any job. So I started a youth group in my church. I was like, oh, there's no youth involvement in the church. How about starting a youth group? So that meant that I would rest the whole of the week, and just one day in a week I was active to do a youth group for my church. I began to appreciate the little things. Even if it's just walking with my son without a stick, or putting my hands in my pocket without holding a stick to guide me as I walk. That gave me peace and joy because it made me feel more independent rather than dependent. I started dwelling in what I could do and started ignoring less where my power was less. I started listening to my body. So I wasn't looking at what others could do as a reflection of what I should do. But I started listening to what my body could allow me to do. So I began to volunteer, to find out different other things that I could invest my time in. That helped me build the little confidence I had to get part-time employment, then get a learning support assistant role in a college. And I was able to dream again, no matter how small it was. I was able to build my strength and started believing that even with lupus, I could make something out of this life. So my research is on the lived experience of Black people with lupus. So I'm interviewing just Black people, but I'm getting an overall experience of people living with lupus despite their race. And finding, do they flourish or do they languish with this process? So I've adapted the process with the CHIME model of mental health well-being. So what inspired my research? So in my dissertation, my master's dissertation, because I did a master's in counseling and positive psychology, I did an autoethnographic account. The backstory is that everybody knew what they were about to write in their thesis. I had no clue. Then I had my professor talk about autoethnography, and it was about writing my story. And I was like, oh, that made sense. So I had to write my story and analyze my own story. So I wrote my experience. I was able to process the physical pain, because it is painful. Lupus is a painful illness. But it's not just the physical pain, it's the psychological pain, it's the mental pain that it has in you, it's that draining effect that it had in you. So I lived through my story in writing that autoethnographic account. So it's where you write your story, but you use scientific evidence to analyze what your story is all about and bring the emotions out of it. So I accepting the unpredictability of my disease and adapting to my new normal. So as I said, it's a drawing analysis from the author's lived experience. It connects researchers' insight into their personal emotions, culture, principles, communication pattern, shared meaning, limits, signs, social issues, and political views. So I found the theme in my story. The theme was pain, which was paramount, acceptance, adaptation, and growth, combined with CHIME. So what's pain? So we experience pain the physical pain, emotional pain, anything that impacts on you. Acceptance is a place that one arrives at, not something you just jump to. You have to arrive at it. So life is a maze. You go through corners in life. But we get to that stage where we sit and speak to ourselves and accept to like roll with it or reject it. So it's our process. When we get to that process, we know. But it's the process everyone needs to get to. Adaptation. The greater the acceptance of a situation, the more we adapt to it. So I adapted my social life, my house, my car. I don't take things for granted. So I know that anything can happen, be it my joints, and so I have spare stuff. For my Reynolds, I have gloves, I wear socks, all those things. So my mobility aids are always around me. So I needed to adapt. I stopped being ashamed of being tagged disabled because I just needed it so that I could take each day at a time. Growth. Sometimes we think we can't grow when things happen to us, but the suffering has a redefining moment. So growth, pain can be transformative when we start accepting it. So there's this genre in positive psychology called post-traumatic growth, refers to experience of positive change that results from struggling with highly challenging life crises. It can happen, but at first it feels like it would never happen, but it does happen. So the chime means, the C is for connectedness, connecting with peers, support groups, relationships, supporting others, and being part of a community so that you don't feel alone. Hope and optimism, a belief in the possibility of recovery, motivation to change, hope-inspiring relationships, positive thinking and valuing success. Identity, dimensions of identity, rebuilding, redefining positive sense of identity, overcoming stigma. Meaning in life, quality of life, spirituality, meaningful life, social roles, rebuilding life, empowerment, personal responsibility, and control over life. Focusing on strengths and knowing that my strength is different from this person's strengths. So there's this VIA character strengths where you can test what your strengths are and you can know, okay, this is where my strength lies and this is where it doesn't lie. So as part of my study, I've interviewed 20 black women, and some of the responses, I wanted to find out if there is evidence of this pain, acceptance, adaptation, growth, connectedness, hope, identity, meaning, and empowerment in their stories. And I would read through some of the stories, you can see them too. This is on pain. I just feel a burning sensation all over my body. And one wrote, I look at old pictures on my phone and I cry. I just wish I still looked like that. I wish that my face was still mine. I was in pain and socializing became stressful. There was a time when a joint pain was so intense I couldn't move around easily. And someone says, I've accepted that it's something I need to be cautious about in my life, but I won't let it define me or stop me from pursuing my goal. I had to accept the fact that this is with me now. Then I had to start thinking of ways to go around it and not let it affect me as much. So one is about hope. To wake up one day without lupus and pain, the medication, that I am lupus free, it is too much for me. So he said, I had to adjust my life to suit lupus. I am a mother, a wife, and a warrior. And this one says, my family supports maybe I would have been 6 feet under or something. They've been my source of strength. I think it has made me stronger, and then it has made me realize that if you have health, you have everything. When people make comments or side remarks, I just look at them and think, your words don't have power over me. That mindset has helped me rebuild my confidence. I now have a voice and the strength to wake up when people try to advise me. And this person, she's a lawyer, said, I wanted to be in the courts defending cases, but with lupus, I have to carry out my legal duties in the office. And the impacts of this, so these ladies I've interviewed, some are in Nigeria, some are in England, and there's some here, and they said, I can't afford to take my medications every day. I fear for what would happen if I'm not here. And it says, I've lost 2 boyfriends because of lupus. One told me his family cannot handle it. The other is a medical doctor and just left without any explanation. I look at the mirror, oh my goodness, who are you? Or I look at old pictures and I cry. I just wish I still looked that way. I wish I still had. I wish my face was still mine. I think I would say flourishing. Sometimes I feel low, but in all, I am flourishing. I do dialysis twice a week. I had a transplant, but it failed after a few months. I'm trying to do another one, but they're very expensive. All my medications are expensive. The financial impact on my family, I feel like a burden to them. People think I am lazy. So this is the emotional impact of lupus, the fear and uncertainty, anxiety about the future, potential complications and what are the treatment options, the loss of control, feeling powerless and frustrated with the unpredictable nature of the disease. What I sleep with and what I wake up with are 2 different things. Then grief and mourning the loss of health and life, what life used to be without lupus. So when I've spoken to these women and I've thought of the impact of things, so I use this Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Your stress level, even when you have lupus, when you match it with where you are in life, that's also very important. So physiological needs, like the people I've interviewed, when you live in a country such as Nigeria, where we don't have what we have here in England, like the NHS, that you could get your medical help and stuff, they are struggling not just with the help, but the fact that they might not be able to afford their medication. Like you see someone that says, I don't take my medications regularly because I fear I would run out. So rather than taking a medication I should take every day, I might spare 2 days so I could take it again. So you can see, because of the financial constraint, they can take it. So how do I expect that person to say I'm flourishing when the basic is not there? So that on its own is a stressor. So before you self-actualize, you need to meet your physiological needs, your safety needs, social needs, self-esteem. We need to meet that before people will get to a stage where they say, oh yes, I'm thriving, oh yes, I'm flourishing. If they don't have the basic necessity. And I feel so blessed that I'm able to be here in this country to have, I'm just thinking of how debilitating my symptoms are. I'm not thinking of how I would get my medication or where I will get my medication from, or is it going to run out? I'm not thinking of that. But there are people with this same condition that do not have the basic hydroxychloroquine to take every month. And how can they thrive? How can they flourish? Why wouldn't they have that anxiety of what would happen to them? Some people would have failed marriages, or their partners would leave them because they cannot deal with it. So these needs, before we get to the place where we say, oh, we're flourishing, these needs need to be met, because it impacts as the person's self-esteem when you're unable to be in the midst of other people because of the way you feel about yourself. You can't walk, you can't talk when other people are talking because you feel low, you know, and all that impacts the stress of lupus. It exacerbates even the symptom because of your state of mind. So I found fear, I found hope, and I found faith. We have this WhatsApp group that I joined, a friend of mine, we still talk more about it. And you see messages where people woke up one morning and someone said, oh, so person's husband called and she's dead because of lupus complications. And you wake up and see that. You see the fear in people about what is going to happen. The fear of uncertainty. However, even amidst those fear, there is still hope. And someone says that faith in God has been a source of strength to help me keep moving on, and the hope to find a cure. And in that process, there are things I also find, even with the fact that people struggle with medical help, medications and all that, they've not lost that sense of hope in them, that something will still happen. So there's Wong and Gong got this positive, building blocks of positive mental health. So the mindfulness mindset. When we talk about acceptance and being present with self. So mindfulness makes you present with self. Being present with yourself is not thinking about the life I had in the past or that fear of the future, but being present, and it comes with being in tune with yourself, listening to your body, which is very important. If I need to rest, I do need to rest, because if I don't rest, I do not function. So it's not what I'm going to do tomorrow, but now, what is my body telling me? You are the most important part of this whole dynamic. Meaningful mindset. So having that sense of meaning, that all hope is not lost. You know, my life still has meaning, my life still has purpose. The dialectical mindset, which means that I can have bad days, and I accept my bad days. I can have good days, and I accept my good days. They all work. It's that flexibility. I'm not boxed in that it has to be this, it has to be grim. There's some days they are grim, yes. Let me accept those grim days. But there's some days I could put a foot in front of the other and move. No matter if I crawl, that's my process. If I crawl to there, that's fine. If I have to stop 10 times, I would stop 10 times. It doesn't matter, because I need to be flexible. There's this book on mindfulness. It says The Power of Letting Go, and it talks about, because I'm also a therapist, we don't need to box ourselves. As humans, we're very adaptable. Accepting that I can be this today, and tomorrow I can wake up and I can be this. I do not need to box myself and say, oh, this is just me. No. Our personalities are adaptations of where we are. That's what forms our personalities. Resilient mindset, that we keep pushing as we go. My push is different from your push. Your push is unique to you. You might not be pushful physically, but internally. That's your resilience. We build from inside. It's not about what people see, but it's that internal fights that we have. We just keep moving, one day at a time. The growth mindset. Everyone grows. That's the beauty of life. You might think, oh, this person's growth is different from mine, but your path is your path. And that's the redefining power of pain sometimes, because it transforms you to see that there's a part to life that you never thought was there, you know. Then there's this model of tragic optimism, that you see that people are tragically optimistic. Despite what they're going through, they still have that in them to say, we'll keep moving. It's not the end of life, you know. And you see that, and it's beautiful because it gives other people hope. If this person can be this unwell and still have that glimpse of hope in them, then I can find hope. So affirmation, courage in the face of adversity, acceptance of the reality, faith in God or your spirituality wherever it takes you, self-transcendence, spiritual connection to a higher purpose, and the power beyond my personal limitation. So how do we build support systems? So family and friends, leaning on loved ones for emotional support, practical help and encouragement, medical professionals, building a strong relationship with doctors, nurses, and therapists, then connecting with others to understand the challenges of living with lupus. Strategies for coping and healing. So self-care, prioritize rest, healthy eating, exercise if you can. Do you. That is very important. Mr. A can be going to the gym and pulling weight and running on treadmills, but I can't because I have neuropathy. I can't do treadmills. It burns my foot. So do you. That's where listening to our body comes. Manage your stress as much as you can. Education. Learning much as you can about lupus and its management, but it has to be just tailored to you. My own way of tailoring my stress level is different from the other person. So it's only when we listen to ourselves that we tailor everything around us to suit us. So share advocacy, sharing your story, advocating for better resources and support for people with lupus. So that is me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, AJ. Thanks a lot.